There are a few verses in Scripture that are often paraded out to condemn gay and lesbian people. There really aren't very many at all, but one of the ones that is commonly brought out is found in Romans chapter 1. So let's take a look at Romans chapter 1. Actually, let's take a look at the first 3 chapters of Romans, because that's where that's the cradle that these verses lie in. Well, we don't need to spend a lot of time on Romans 1 through 15, because all that is Paul saying, "Hi, I'm Paul. I'm an apostle. I look forward to seeing you someday." At verse 16, Paul sort of fires the starting gun, and what he says is, "I'm going to tell you about the gospel the way I see it." Okay, verse 18, verse all the way through the end of the chapter, verse 32, I think can be reasonably summarized with the statement, all the Gentiles deserve to die. Everybody who's not a Jew deserves to die. Verse 1 of chapter 2 begins a new section that runs through chapter 3, verse 8, and that can be summarized with, oh, and by the way, all the Jews deserve to die. Anybody who is a Jew deserves to die. And then starting at verse 9 in chapter 3 through the end, verse 20, is the end of the people deserve to die section of the book of Romans, and that is pretty well summarized with everybody deserves to die. This is Paul's threefold condemnation of the human race. He needs to condemn the Gentiles, he needs to condemn the Jews, and just in case you thought he left anybody out, he condemns everybody in the human race. And the purpose of this is a rhetorical device that he draws out, and what happens next is then he introduces the reckoning of righteousness through faith, starting with Abraham, and it goes clear on to chapter 8, where we find out that neither height nor depth nor anything in all creation can separate us from the love of God. Boom, that's Paul's gospel. So, back in the section in chapter 1, where Paul is saying all the Gentiles deserve to die, we do find a verse or two about how homosexual interaction is something to be condemned. But let's look at the crescendo. Okay, that's kind of how the chapter 1 condemnations begin. Now let's get down here where he really winds up. What's on the list of things that people do who deserve to die? Gossips, people disobedient to their parents, boastful people. Now, which one of us is going to escape that net when the weave is that fine? Which one of us can say, I have not boasted? Paul didn't say how many times you have to do these things to be condemned by them. He just says, hey, the gossips, those disobedient to parents, those who are boastful, how does he end it? Those who do such things deserve death. He didn't say these are bad things, try and avoid them. He says those who do such things deserve death. Paul is in the business in the first 3 chapters of the book of Romans in getting everybody condemned, throwing us all into the same pot of soup so that all of us, whether we are Gentile or Jew, have to look to God to find our righteousness reckoned through faith. It's a rhetorical device that was never meant to actually pick out one part of society and say, you're condemned, and then say, you're not. Because what it really does is, you're condemned, you're condemned, you're condemned, you're condemned, and you're condemned. All of us are condemned so that all of us face the same dilemma of needing our righteousness reckoned through faith. It's not about picking on gay people. It's about picking on everybody so that we can also be shown our need for righteousness reckoned through faith. And that's what that verse is about.